Hello YouTube and welcome to Mandibil. I want to tell you a little story about an experience that I had the other day. And I was out driving and been to the big city, and I was heading back home, and on the passing through the the exit routes from the big city there was somebody, what's it called when you hitchhiking? A young girl was showing the hitchhiking thumb signal, whatever it's called, right? And I thought, okay, well, I like to have somebody to talk to while I'm driving, so I've done that before, a couple of times or 3 times. It's usually people who want to get from the capital to the other end of towards Germany or something like that, right? Who needs a hitchhike, so they're possibly going to have a long route. And I was saying, okay, I parked the car and waved her over. I said, where are you going? So she said, well, I'm going in that direction. Okay, I'm going to this direction, which is somewhat in the same direction. I said, yeah, okay, fine. Or I didn't say that. I mentioned the city, and she said, well, fine, okay. She came in, and I sort of removed all the stuff I had on the passenger seat and so on, right? Onto the back seat, and I said, well, relax, I'm harmless. And maybe it was a sort of a provocative comment, right? But then he said, well, they all say that. So I sort of, okay, I was just trying to be sort of friendly, right? He said that, but they all say that. First I was sort of a little taken aback, because it's sort of, if she's sort of afraid of, strange men in cars, why is she hitchhiking around, alone, right? It's just sort of, I was just sort of it just struck me as a weird comment, right? But okay, then we kept going, and then she looked at her phone. She started to look at her phone. Now, first I thought that was a strange sort of, I know, young generations, right? Generation C and so on. They are born with a phone in their hand, so they have to look at the phone to make sure that they are functioning, right? And it was also, it could easily be seen as sort of a, I don't give a shit about you as a person, right? While I was extending my hand to her, you could say, by helping her getting from A to B. But then I realized she was checking out where this city I was going to was compared to the route she was going to take. So I guess that was fine, right? And then she sort of said, well, I'm not sure it's actually in the right direction. I want maybe to go more in that direction. So I said, well, I see, I get your point. Maybe I should put you off, or what's it called? Set you off the car, throw you off the car, out of the car, at the next opportunity. So she was like, yeah, okay, I don't know where to know. I was thinking to myself, no, there wasn't actually that many obvious places to set her off the car, right? So she wouldn't stand there out of nowhere, so to say. So it would be have to some kind of traffic point where you could get to another car who might go in the right direction. So as I was thinking, and I reminded myself that I had planned to go to some other place the day after, and that other place would actually be near another town that if I was going, I went there instead, it would actually be on the route she was going. So I offered her, well, listen here, tomorrow I was planning to go to this place, which is actually on your route. And well, I could change it, and I could just do it today, right? And then I could put you off in that town, and you would be closer to where you're going. So she was, but what were you going to do tomorrow? And I was like, well, that's none of your business, right? do you want to go or not, right? So yeah, okay, I want to go. Okay, so she was sort of hesitating, like she was sort of, what's with this guy, right? Is he a creep or something, right? And yeah, my car is not the latest model, right? And it's a slightly dirty and messy, and one of the seats doesn't work perfectly, and so on. So it's like I might look like on the surface, I might look like some redneck driving around with chickens in the back or something like. But I started discussing with her, sort of, no, where are you going? What are you doing? Where are you from? And all this, right? And so she quite quickly realized that I wasn't quite so stupid, right? Okay, she told me she was from, I don't even remember how many countries, but she was from, I think it was from Portugal and France and a third country, maybe Sweden or something, I'm not sure, right? I started to ask her questions. Oh, that's interesting. So you've been all over the place. So what do you do for a living or something? Well, she was going to be a teacher. A teacher, I says, right? That's interesting. Yeah, well, she was going to be a teacher of what's the term? Difficult kids, difficult teenagers. Like sort of abusers or abused children or criminal children or whatever term you would have put on it, right? And we sort of I asked her a bit about. She told me about her plans and sort of, right? And I thought she was quite open about her situation. She was willing to discuss and talk. So I strike a conversation, right? And I thought, okay, she's interested in children, obviously. I mean, so I asked her, okay, so why exactly do you want to be with difficult children? She was sort of starting to think a bit. I could sense that she already felt my sort of inquisitive nature, right? So she started, well, okay, maybe I have to be honest with you, sort of. Yeah, sure. I like honesty, right? So he said, well, my brother has been sort of slightly criminal, and there's also something, she mentioned something, her English weren't that good, so there are a few words here and there I didn't get, right? But I wouldn't start digging too deep. I sort of did keep the conversation flowing. So there was also something about her father she mentioned, right? That sort of, she was trying to mend something by becoming this kind of teacher. So okay, so I started to talk about a family and a family structure and how. So I kept asking about these things, right? So and how her parents met, and they had been divorced, both of them, and then they met later, and so on and so on and so on, right? So I just kept asking, and she explained. A little hesitating, but I think she thought that that's actually kind of nice, somebody asking questions about my life, so that I can explain my choices and my not desires, my ambitions, sort of, right? So she was possibly slightly confused why I was so direct, but she also kind of liked it. So I'll have to take a break here, and something I have to do. I'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so at some point I sort of wondered, I was like, okay, now she's sort of open. I think I'll try to go all the way and see how deep I can go into this understanding. It's not. She was. I found out she was 22 years old, and it's not every day that I get to ask questions to a 20-year-old woman, who I'm never going to meet again. And she also said, well, when she said before, well, I suppose I could be honest with you, we are never going to meet again, right? So it's sort of a special situation. So if she was honest, well, it would be 1 in a million that we will ever meet again, right? 1 in a gazillion, gadillion, quintillion, right? Fantasillion. So I asked her if she was planning on having babies or having children. She was kicked aback a little, right, by my directness. But I guess that maybe she felt a little obliged to keep the conversation going. Also maybe because I was giving her a hand, right? I was driving her from A to B, and I changed my route in order to accommodate her, needs, right? And she also borrowed I have a loading cable for iPhone in my car, so she borrowed that. She asked if you could borrow it, and then she borrowed it, right? So she was I was servicing her in a sense, right? So the least she could do is under these circumstances was to be honest with me. So it's sort of okay, this could be an interesting ride. So it would take about half an hour maybe, or something like that. And she said, "No, I'm not ready for children. No, I'm not at this point. I'm not ready to have children." Well, I said, "Well, you're never going to get more ready than you are now, right?" So after 22 years, or maybe let's say 5 years at least as a reasonable grown-up, right? You haven't figured out whether or not you want children, or basically you say you don't want children yet, right? Well, yes, that was sort of her answer. So I asked, okay then, but why do you want to be around other people's children and difficult children, but you don't want to be around your own children? And she was I got her, right? Said, well, that's different. That's because I feel I can do something. And these kids, they need some, love and protection, or some what's it called? Not an idol, but a person to look up to as I'm looking for a particular word, a model, a role model, right? But if you're not interested in having your own children, how can you be a role model for another person? What kind of model would you be for a boy at 17? A woman at 22 who don't want children? What kind of role model would you be? So I just kept, and then she came up with sort of answers like, okay, but I feel I have sort of a calling. It was not exactly those words she used, but I can do something good, or something along those lines. I said, but so you are sort of a Mother Teresa or something? Then she sort of laughed, but I said, well, be careful, because Mother Teresa might have got the Nobel Prize, but actually there are strong rumors that she actually in some way made the children she helped dependent on her. In order for her to be able to virtue signal, she was dependent on having somebody she could virtue signal on, right? So she was just like the welfare state. Those who, I want to help, they're dependent on sort of a state that can destroy youth and children and families so that they have a job, right? So it becomes a kind of a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, or whatever it would be called, right? So and then she was sort of okay, but I don't know. That's what I've chosen to do, or sort of something like that. Okay, fine. I mean, fine. So, but if you're not going to have children now, what are you going to do then? I asked. Well, I want to see the world. I want to meet new people and so on. Okay, so you just want to sort of travel around, sort of just like you're doing now, sitting alone in some stranger's car? you know, relying on the kindness of strangers, right? I said, well, yes and no, and sort of, but I need time to think about my life. Okay, but you don't need to travel in order to think, right? If you're traveling, you will be preoccupied with all sorts of other stuff, all the people you meet, and, you know, getting around and looking at you know, buildings and whatever, right? So you will actually not be spending very much time about thinking about things. No, you would rather be, you know, infatuated by, you know, the odd pretty boy or nice bad boy that you will sort of have a fling here and a fling there, and you will sort of waste your 20s traveling around, you know, having you know, what's the word, attention of bad boys potentially. I mean, as far as I was not looking that careful direct at her, but she seemed like, you know, a decent average girl, maybe a little chubby, but, you know, and not something that a bad boy would reject, right? And if she got the right bikini, and, you know, she would possibly be bad boy material, I would presume. And I mean, I'm not interested, right? I'm not that kind of, I'm not interested in women, right? I mean, I'm attracted to women from, you know, from a sex standpoint, right? But that doesn't mean I'm going to engage with women. That's my point, right? But so we talked about this, or I asked her about this, but are you just going to sort of travel around here and there? Well, she hadn't decided yet what she wanted. She wanted to get her education, and then she would go traveling. So, and I said, but you want children? Well, yes, but not at least 10 years from now. So I said, okay, so, but you know, you need a man to have children, right? I mean, theoretically, she doesn't need a man, but, you know, in every decent understanding of family structures, right? Yeah, but, you know, I'm not ready, and so, and she kept talking about how she, you know, she would just, you know, to figure herself out in her 20s. She said, I think that you need to have this, you know, phase of your life where you try to figure out what to do, right? Then I was sort of direct and said, that phase you're talking about, would that be the hoe phase? And she was sort of, you know, what do you mean hoe? You know what a hoe is, right? Then she got it, right? It's sort of, okay, so you're basically saying that you rather spend your time with the occasional bad boy rather than making sure that you will get a good family life, right? And I said to her, well, maybe you will end up in a situation where you find your biological clock ticking, and you can almost see the wall in the horizon, and then you'll grab any old dude and have children with him, and you will hate yourself and the dude and maybe even your children for having to do it in that fashion rather than being focused on it now when you've got the youth and the time and the energy, and you can still have a career after your children are grown-ups. You will be sort of 40 years old at that point, right? If you wait 10 years, you will be more than 50 years old when your children move away from home, right? Then it's much harder to start a new career. Just ask me, I'm 55. I can tell you how hard it is to turn over your career, right? In your 50s. It's not impossible, which I'm also a proof of, right? But so I said, why don't you think about starting a family now? And she was starting to get a little, well, you're very, very direct in your questioning. Well, yeah, why not? We're not going to meet again, are we? Right? Why haven't anybody discussed these things with you? Well, haven't your family, your mother and father discussed this? Well, not really, right? And she sort of indicated that her father was sort of forgiving and not demanding on her, right? not giving her any sort of guidance or saying, okay, you need to do something like this, and if you don't do that, I'm not sure that we can keep on going, right? When you're grown up, you know, some sort of guidance to say that you're going for this, and just giving her the argument at least, right? I'm not a proponent at all of commanding your children around, because they're not going to do it anyway then, right? But setting up the scenario so that she or he, for that matter, but particular girls, right? That it might feel like it's nice when you're in your 20s and can fool around and party all night and so on, right? But at some point, that family thing and that children thing is going to creep up on you, right? And then you will be sort of panicked at some point. And you will have to find some good husband, right? You will have to find some good man to have your children with, right? You would want that, right? Yes, you said you. So what kind of man would you say is a quality man? Well, he has to be, you know, he has to have a good job and be dependent. And, you know, I said, do you think he should have high morals? Or say, yes, he should have high morals, and sort of, yeah, all these standard things that are sort of easy to say, but quite more difficult to figure out in real life, right? A husband or a wife doesn't come with a little man that says, I'm moral and I'm dependable and I'm having a good job. Maybe that's one of the things you can measure, right? But do you have any idea how to get that or find that? Well, I just think that you will meet somebody at some point. So you are just putting your faith, your life in the hands of, you know, coincidence, right? What are you doing? You're 22, you should be all over the idea of having a family, right? And let me tell you, I told you, do you think, I asked her, I didn't tell her, I asked her, do you think a quality man would rather have a 22-year-old girl who was ready to have a family, or a 32-year-old girl who had been around and sort of well-worn and not very good at commitment? A 32-year-old, but was desperate because now she needed to have children. Which one of these two girls do you think a quality man would prefer? Then she said, but I don't think that age matters that much then. Then I say, okay, then you'll be very, very wrong, right? It might be the case to some extent that women are more like, I'm okay with a man that is maybe 5 or 7 or even 10 years older than me. But let me tell you, that does not go the other way around, right? A man would rather have a woman that is under 25 and preferably a virgin, right? And then she was sort of knocked back. Like, okay, but I don't want to discuss this anymore, right? And then we're also about to be at the place where I have to, you know, kick her out of the car, right? So she was sort of, you are very direct, she said. Well, yes. Well, why not? You're never going to meet me again, right? Well, at least she said, well, you have actually given me something to think about. I don't know what to say. And then I was like, well, okay, maybe I've, you know, moved a few brain cells there, right? So it was just sort of one of these one-off experiences, right? I'm the kind of guy who, unless some hitchhiker looked like is some, you know, criminal or some crazy person, I usually stop and say, where are you going? And you know have a talk and so on, right? I like that. So and you know, help other people, right? Help them out. Maybe they will, you know, maybe it will be the next genius creating the biggest company in the world, and they will remember you as the guy or the girl who helped out or something. Who knows, man? Who knows what happens, right? These are one of those little small kinds of very small adventures you can have in your life, right? And meet somebody who, she wasn't the sort of the brightest star under the sky, right? On the sky, but yet she clearly had, she kind of indicated her life was a bit of a mess. She didn't say it, but it was sort of between the line. Yeah, okay, it's a bit of a mess right now. I'm trying to figure out but she's 22, right? When you're 22, you have been a grown-up for at least 5 years, at least as a woman, right? And you have been, sexually mature for maybe 7 or 8 years, right? So it's like maybe even more. So it's not this thing about family and children and so on. It's not that, it shouldn't come as a surprise, right? But one thing I told her, well, my observation is that women think of their 20s as the time when they're going to have fun, and it's the only time they can possibly have fun, right? Because then the family starts to kick in because of the biological clock, and then everything becomes boring every suburb every day, right? And you just go 9 to 5 jobs and put your children in daycare and so on, and then the rest of the life is boring, right? So the only break in this completely boring life is to have some loose fun in your 20s, so to say, right? I just think it's a stupid decision. Because why not think of that family as your life's project? Nobody says you have to be, your children will grow up after 20 years, hopefully, and if you're a good mom and you find your children a good father, you will have a great family, right? And you will see them grow up and get their jobs, and they will come and visit you or talk to you, and sort of all these things that happen because you have made a good family. That's what is going to carry you through life and make you happy. Just wasting your 20s traveling around the world banging bad boys is not going to crack it, right? And when you get 30 and say, oh my God, the funny life is over. Now I'm going to find some stupid idiot to have children with, right? And you're going to hate everything. She was completely mute, right? So, I was very direct, but I don't care. I don't care. I don't give a shit, right? And she could say, well, I don't want to listen to you. Okay, I could say, well, do you want to get out of the car? And then it's fine with me. I have no problem. I'm not bothered by you not wanting to ride in my car, right? So if that was the case, fine. I will put you off here at the next possible opportunity. So that was just one of those, one-off stories, right? So hope to see you again soon. Have a nice day. See you next time.